No, you know, the funny thing is that you're too sensitive. You're sensitive that we have an opinion.
All right,
that's
check.
crazy.
Wait, hold on. No. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability.
So
The fact of the matter is she's a failing vice president. She's terrible. She was terrible when she ran for president. She's terrible as the vice president.
So when a president
with all due respect, you have no idea what the structure of our government is. I'm so sorry, okay? Impeachment is a political process that is completely and totally not true. This is
What's up, you guys? My name is Noah. Today, I wanted to go over an episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. On this episode, Piers is talking with Officer Tatum, Cenk Uygur, and Destiny.
Why didn't you dye your beard? Because beard hair, 1, is really hard to dye. I don't think it holds to dye as well, and 2, it grows out in like 6 days.
It's also featuring a woman I haven't personally heard of. I think she calls herself the redheaded libertarian, but she's pretty based, so I feel ashamed that I don't know who she is, but I do now. Anyway, there's some really good heated conversation in this one. I wanted to listen to it, talk a little bit about it. So without further ado, let's check it out.
Democracy is no longer on the ballot in the US presidential election. The grave new threat to the republic is apparently weirdness. And Democrats are extremely eager for you to know that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are weird.
He and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird. Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate, they're weird.
Well, CNN and MSNBC reportedly used the word weird to describe J.D. Vance 150 times in 2 days this weekend.
Tell me that is not some like top tier Soviet style propaganda, dude. Like that's coordinated. All of these different people, all of these different channels, that's coordinated. I know we're not even into the conversation yet. I just had to talk about that real quick because that's what's weird. Actually, it's not weird. It's like terrifying. That's a coordinated attack from the top down. All of the Democrat politicians, the mainstream corporate news channels, all saying the same things, but they're not in cahoots. We all know that they're not connected. It's just a coincidence. Anyway, okay, just started the video and I already can't shut up. I just had to touch on that, dude. It's crazy.
Well, the problem with Democrats on this point in particular is that they can be pretty weird themselves, so as evidenced by Harris supporters at campaign events so far this week.
You don't mess with childless cat ladies.
Good evening, folks. My name is Charlotte Clymer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a writer and activist, and I am so excited to be part of this historic gathering of women across the country.
Amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn, so do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
I stood over my kid's bed and I wept. I wept because I felt like I let them down. I wept because they had the chance and we had the chance to have a female president for the first time in our lives and in the history of this nation.
All very normal people doing and saying very normal things. To coin a phrase, there are very weird people on both sides. The more important point is that we now have a race with very clearly defined parameters. There are now 2 candidates who seem likely to survive until November, and they both have very different visions for the future of the country. The speed with which the media and the Democratic establishment has thrown its weight behind Kamala Harris is, of course, cynical and pretty nauseating, especially as we know that Biden only clung on for so long because he personally doubted that Kamala could win. I understand the anger in conservative quarters, how quickly the calamities and cover-up have been forgotten, but the fact is that Kamala Harris is the candidate and the polls are narrowing fast. If Republicans want to regain their advantage, they've got to flip the script again. Less whining and more winning. Well, joining me now is the co-founder of Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, from the Red-Headed Libertarian, Josie Glayback, streamer Destiny, and from the Officer Tatum podcast, Brandon Tatum. Welcome to all of you. Cenk Uygur, this whole thing about weirdness, are Democrats in a great place to lecture people about being weird, given how weird so many Democrats are?
Yes, they are. First of all, the people that you showed in the weird montage for Democrats is someone dressed up, someone who's transgender, and someone who cries too much. Okay, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm not offended by it. And it's most importantly not policy. On the other hand, when J.D. Vance says that people who have more kids should be able to vote more, and he constantly attacks people without children, look, you can call it weird, you can call it anything you like, but it is way outside the bounds of normal policy matters, and it gets into controlling our lives from the guys who pretended that they were against big government.
Josie Glayback, is this J.D. Vance comment about the childless, cat-loving ladies of America, is that going to turn out to be a massive millstone? And will it make Donald Trump regret choosing him as his VP?
No, I don't think so. I think that these ladies are really leaning into their childless, cat-owning persona and just owning it. And I can think of more offensive things that have been said about women than owning cats and being childless. So I don't think it's going to hang around. I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit, and I think that they're going to move on pretty soon.
But it kind of plays into this narrative of Democrats, I think, are rather successfully pushing out there now, that the Republican ticket has Donald Trump, whose history with women is not great, to put it mildly, and you've now got J.D. Vance, whose comments about women are not great, to put it mildly, and they're going to package it all up as a war on women, using, I suspect, abortion as one of the central weapons to do that. And there are going to be a lot of women in America going, I'm childless, I don't have a cat, I don't like being talked about in this derogatory manner. And they may not want government to interfere with their bodies and so on. Are you not worried that this is going to be a big problem come November?
I don't think so. So abortion was never banned. What they did, they returned it to the states, which is the way that it should have been the whole time. Roe v. Wade was legislated. Roe v. Wade was legislated from the bench, which is unconstitutional. So what Dobbs did is it just handed it back to the states, and it told Congress, if you can write a law, then we'll legislate this law. Or if you can legislate this law, then we're going to rule on this law and tell you if this law is constitutional. So they handed it back to Congress, handed it back to the states. Congress tried to pass a law to codify abortion, and it failed. So it's still in the hands of Congress. If they want to write a law to codify abortion, then they can.
Look at the way that Chank and Destiny just cannot contain themselves. Destiny's just like...
handed it back to the states, and it told Congress, if you can write a law.
Like, dude, everything she's saying is true. She hasn't said anything that's not true. These guys want to freak out. First off, when Chank says that the Democrats have any room to call conservatives weird, wrong. I find that so funny. The conservative movement is made up of generally like normal working class people with families, generally heterosexual, family-oriented, hardworking middle Americans. That's not weird. And then when Piers shows that compilation of the people that vote Dem, Chank tries to pull the, well, that was a lady that was dressed up and a trans person and this. Yeah, that's the point, dude. Those are the people that vote Democrat. Obviously, not everyone is like that. But are we really trying to have an argument over who's weirder, Republicans or Democrats? Conservatism. We're conserving traditional values. I understand to some people, I might look, like a fairly liberal dude. And honestly, it's because I always was a fairly liberal guy. But the Overton window has just gone so far to the left that I'm just on the right by default. And I know a lot of us are. But all of that aside, to frame what J.D. Vance said as if it's weird, what's weird about it? Like, people should have kids. People should invest in the future. If you're a politician and you don't have children, it's probably not good that you're leading the country, because any decisions that you make that are going to affect us in the long term aren't going to affect you at all, because you don't have a family. It's not going to affect your kids, your grandchildren. The reason there's such an uproar over what J.D. Vance said is because he's right. They're triggered because he called them out. There are a bunch of Democrats that are childless cat ladies. It's made up of feminists that are career driven, don't have families. So they replace the desire for children with cats. That's why they're salty. This is coming from a dude Me? And I have 2 cats and no kids, you know? I want to have kids. I plan on having kids. I'm not married yet, planning on getting married. But right now, I'm just a dude with 2 cats and no kids. And even I'm like, yeah, he's right. That's true. But they're like, oh, it's just plain weird.
He looks like a weirdie.
Like, no, it's not, dude. It's probably the most normal thing a politician has said in a long time. Anyway, let's continue.
That kind of significant sea change in the makeup of the Supreme Court, doesn't it lose its ability to be impartial?
Well, we had a liberal leading Supreme Court for 60 years.
True.
And now it's the first time where it switched and it's starting to lean conservative again for the first time in a long time. Now, if you want to add term limits to the Supreme Court, that would require a constitutional amendment of Article 3. And that would mean two-thirds of Congress and 3/4 of the states would have to agree to term limits on the Supreme Court. So that's just not something you can wave a wand and do. Also, it'd be unconstitutional to punish a president for performing his enumerated and implied powers. And SCOTUS, when they had said that they weren't going to criminalize this, SCOTUS had asked the lower courts to determine that scope, but no one's really talking about that part. It was SCOTUS had sent it back to the lower courts. They didn't just rule on it blindly.
That is completely and totally not true. This is misrepresented by conservatives so much, okay? So there were 4 different actions that the court spoke about. Roberts ruled one of them is qualifying for absolute immunity, this first bucket of things that he's created, by the way. None of these things have existed historically. There are other things now. All of the other acts are presumed immune, meaning that the state, or the government in this case, has to bring a reason why they should be able to probe these actions in a way that will never damage the executive's ability to operate in the future, which encompasses all of the other actions that are spoken about in the Supreme Court case. The reason why they remanded some of that to the lower court was for the lower courts to now have that argument over the presumptive immunity. Criminal immunity has never existed in any size, shape, or form for any politician in this country in the history of the United States. And the idea that a U.S. president, that we came from a rebellion against a king, that our president is now criminally immune for performing his duties, why would we ever assume that he needs that type of immunity?
That's not true.
It's true.
When was the president immune for criminal immunity?
There's a process for
I don't even know. Wait, when was the president immune from criminal immunity?
There's a process for when a president commits a crime, and that process is outlined in Article 1. It's to impeach him.
What is that process?
Look.
Wait, hold on. No. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability.
So when a criminal, so when a president,
with all due respect, you have no idea what the structure of our government is. I'm so sorry. Okay, impeachment is a political process that you use to unseat somebody, and once they're unseated, you can prevent them from holding future office. If you listen to Benjamin Franklin, for instance, talk about impeachment, impeachment was created so that you didn't have to either assassinate or fabricate criminal charges to remove somebody from office. Impeachment has nothing to do with criminal liability. The maximum conviction sentence you can get for being impeached is just being removed from office and prevented from taking seat in future office. That's it.
No, it's not.
All right. Let me just, I just want to move on. I want to move on. Let me discuss that at length. I want to move on to Trump's latest interview with Laura Ingraham at Fox News, in which he said this about Kamala Harris.
She got rid of the laugh. I noticed I haven't seen that crazy laugh that she got. She's crazy. That laugh, that's the laugh of a crazy person. But I noticed that she's not using that laugh anymore. Somebody convinced her, don't laugh. Just don't laugh. Don't laugh under any circumstances because you.
I like laughter, but sometimes.
Not her laughter.
Now, Tatum, what do you make of that? I mean, Kamala Harris does have a weird laugh, there's no doubt about it. She's labeling Trump and JD Vance as a bunch of weirdos too. Everyone's calling each other crazy, weird, whatever. What they're not debating, it seems to me much, is policy. Why has it descended into kind of just pathetic name calling?
Yeah, I think, I don't like when politicians do this because it's pointless for the American people. Like, in a conversation where Donald Trump may want to interject that's fine. But like you said, it does nothing for the political conversation. Now, I'll say this. I'm not going to say no one cares because I think it's a negative that Kamala Harris does have a weird laugh. I think it does turn people off to her. But I think it has zero value in a person going to the grocery store and trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. So Donald Trump mentioning that is completely pointless. And I think it doesn't add any value. But I didn't listen to the full conversation, and I don't know if it was just a side note that he interjected. But I think the conversation needs to be focused more on policy and how we're going to turn around America and make it better for everybody that live here.
Okay, and Cheng, on this separate rising thing about white dudes backing Kamala Harris. Do you feel entirely comfortable with this? We've actually got the actual dude saying it. Let's take a listen to him.
I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
I was brought to the party not so much as being white, and I certainly am, but because I'm a dude, you know. So a friend sent me this email today with your hat on there, and I said, oh, I gotta have one of those. I qualify, man. I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris.
White dudes for Kamala. How crazy is that? Sounds a little bit sus to me.
This white dude thing, do you feel comfortable with this?
No, I don't think it's good politics. And I don't think it's necessary at all. So let's stop playing identity politics. Kamala Harris and the Democrats don't have to say, hey, you should vote for her because she's a black woman. Everybody already knows she's a black woman, so don't worry about it. You should let the Republicans play identity politics, and when they attack her for being a woman, which they can't help themselves, they do nonstop, then the Democrats gain. And when they attack her for being black, then the Democrats gain. So stop all this stuff about racial stuff from the Democratic side. Let the Republicans do it to their detriment.
Can anybody tell me one conservative that dogs on Kamala Harris for being black or for being a woman? Because I listen to conservative media every day and I've never heard it.
Okay,
Republicans
Destiny,
have never attacked her.
How worried?
Thank you,
Okay,
Tatum.
Officer Tatum, respond to that first, and I'll come to Destiny.
No, I think it's superfluous conversations being had. The Republicans have never attacked her for being a woman. They attacked her because she's incompetent. And that's the argument that has been going on and on and on. She's an incompetent person. It doesn't matter if she's a woman. It doesn't matter if she's black. Nobody cares. The fact of the matter is she's a failing vice president. She's terrible. She was terrible when she ran for president. She's terrible as the vice president. She adds no value to the political realm. She has no conversations about what she can do to better America. The woman is just literally selected as the VP because she was a black woman by the Democrats. And that's not going to bode well when it comes to the policies that people need to see to make a difference in America. Nobody I know is supporting Democrats now because Kamala Harris is in a position of power.
Okay, well, Destiny, Elon Musk.
Yeah, see, he's doing it right there.
Hang on.
How funny is it that Destiny and Chank are trying to claim that conservatives love to dog on women and black people, and yet the conservatives on the panel are either women or black? It just gets me, dude. These people, what world are they living in?
I have a specific question. Elon Musk actually reposted on X a doctored video featuring Kamala Harris. Her voice had been doctored by AI. Let's take a look at the clip first of all.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
Now, a number of issues from that. One is, on one level, it's just quite funny. It's a joke. It's a parody. But secondly, that video has now been seen 128 million times on Elon Musk's X account. He said, "This is amazing," with a laughing emoji. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, told Musk to take it down, to which Musk replied, "I checked with renowned world authority, Professor Sugondi's nuts." and he said parody is legal in America, which is a typical Elon Musk response. Destiny, you're not laughing.
How wild is it to have Elon on our side? The richest man in the world just said that to the governor of California. That's crazy. As a Christian, I probably shouldn't laugh at that, but kind of got me a little bit.
To keep in mind, no, at this point, no, I'm sorry. Just to keep in mind, okay, when the Twitter files were released, there was exactly one person from one administration that literally sent in a request for a tweet to be removed from a comedian lady because she called Trump a pussy-ass bitch, and that was Donald Trump. That is the only time we've seen a personal request for a tweet to be removed because they were unhappy with the language that was being used. That came from Donald Trump. So to turn around and be like, oh, it's so funny when they make fun of our side. Meanwhile, you got a guy who's talking about imprisoning imprisoning Americans for burning the flag. Crazy. I thought Republicans were all about freedom of speech and the First Amendment. I just think that's absolutely hilarious. Also, I think it is very funny that Republicans and conservatives in general, the people of Pizzagate and QAnon and all these crazy conspiracies, have in real time, this is like the conservative wet dream conspiracy. You have the richest man in the world from another country who bought the largest social media platform for media news distribution. He made it private. He took it private, doesn't do reporting on anything anymore, and is now openly reposting AI deepfake images of left-wing candidates. Like, holy shit. It's like everything they accused George Soros of doing, except it's actually out in the open and they're actually doing it. They're all laughing about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. So Destiny just said himself right there, it's out in the open. Right. George Soros is behind the scenes giving money to all these different campaigns, and him and the politicians that he's throwing money at are actively trying to censor conservative voices. Elon Musk bought Twitter completely out in the open and opened it up for everybody to speak. He didn't try to silence one side or the other. He made it to where everybody could speak. The two things aren't even comparable. Like, yeah, he shared a funny meme. It's not like he was actively putting out propaganda and trying to frame it like it was real. And honestly, we're lucky to have Elon Musk. Could you imagine if we didn't have Elon Musk on our side? It'd be crazy, dude. He's done so much for the country. Had he never bought Twitter, so much of the information that is damaging to the left, we can actually see it on X. We can see it on Twitter. I'm telling you, as somebody that makes videos, a lot of times when I'm trying to find videos that I want to put in my video, I can't find them on YouTube, so I have to go to X to search them, then I can find them on X. Could you imagine if we didn't have that capability? There's Rumble too. Although Rumble has some bugs that they need to work out. But I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. We're lucky to have them because like the entire establishment's against us, dude.
It's funny, like in a depressing kind of way.
Let me ask.
It's a parody like when Snoop Dogg does a music video and Donald Trump is in it and Republicans are losing their mind over, oh my God, it was a mock assassination. Yeah, parody, come on.
Well, yeah, they shot him in the head in the video. They shot him in the head.
Let me ask, before we go.
I never thought that I could view Cenk as a breath of fresh air until I saw him side by side with Destiny.
Well, joining the panel now is the host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren. Tomi, great to see you. This J.D. Vance problem, as it's now being categorized, where they found this comment he said to Tucker Carlson several years ago about childless cat ladies. How damaging do you think that is potentially to Republicans? I know you've been quite vocal on X about this, and I kind of agree with you. But explain why you're so concerned.
Well, I'm concerned because I want to get Donald Trump reelected, and I don't think that it's helpful to have some of these unforced errors. It just shouldn't be a part of the discourse, shouldn't be a part of the discussion. We should be talking about policy, as the rest of your panel has been talking about for your entire show. We should be talking about issues that matter to the American people, that they can vote on and they can change. You're not going to vote and make someone have a kid or have 5 kids or have no kids. Really has nothing to do with that. It's a personal decision. As somebody who is a conservative and maybe more libertarian-leaning conservative, I just don't think that someone's maternal status should be brought into this discussion at all. And I think that the best thing that running mate and Senator J.D. Vance can do at this point to get himself out of the situation is to just simply apologize, say that he meant it as a joke. He doesn't look at people who don't have kids any differently than he looks at people that have 5 kids, and move on from it. Disarm them, much in the same way that Donald Trump disarmed the argument on a national abortion ban. Donald Trump got out, he was very definitive about it, and he really neutralized the argument. So J.D. Vance needs to do that. But if he doesn't, we're just getting more clips and more footage of him saying similar things, and it's not going to be helpful to the Trump campaign. It's an unforced error. I hope we can move on from it.
I'm sorry, but she's tripping, dude. He should not come out and apologize. That's not going to disarm them. Do you think they care what the truth is? Because I don't. If he apologizes, they're just going to smell blood in the water.
Ooh, that's good.
They're going to come even harder. They don't care if he apologizes. If the dude apologizes, they just know that they struck a nerve and they're going to come at him twice as hard. I can already see it now. J.D. Vance tries to backpedal on what he said about women after severe backlash. Like, no, that's a terrible idea.
This scene, let's go back to the Olympics, involving a parody, a lampooning of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting. Clearly, that's what it was. They tried to pretend it was to do with some Greek god feast and so on. But the woman in the middle there with the kind of weird spiky halo above her head, who was playing Jesus, actually said on the Instagram, this was clearly, she put it next to the Da Vinci painting. So there was no doubt what they thought they were doing. They were lampooning the Last Supper. Now, I'm a Catholic. There are 2.4 billion Christians in the world. I can only begin to imagine the uproar if this had been done to, say, Islam or to Hinduism or to Judaism, to any other religion, frankly. But because it was the Christians, it was like, well, it's a fair game, Gov. I didn't think it was. I thought it was grotesquely and deliberately offensive. What were your thoughts?
Ooh. Yeah, you're exactly right. Deliberately offensive. And the half-ass apology that they tried to issue afterwards just goes to the core that this was purposely offensive, because these people that organize these freak shows, they love to ruffle the feathers of Christians because they know that Christians really won't do anything about it. It'll hurt our feelings for a day. There'll be some social media outrage, but then nothing will really come of it. You couldn't make fun of any other religion this way. They wouldn't stand for it. They wouldn't allow it to happen. They would have a much bigger outcry than just a few disgruntled Christians who take offense to it and a few maybe celebrity Christians who have spoken out about it. But they deliberately intended to offend Christians, and they wanted to put on this freak show to just once again thumb their nose at people with more traditional values and say that, hey, no spectacle is left for normal people anymore. You want to watch sports and just enjoy sports? Well, no, we're going to have drag queens and we're going to shove bearded ladies and blue men in your face and enjoy. And that's exactly what they wanted to do, and they achieved it. Congratulations, you've turned off people from sports, one of the only things that gave us some reprieve in this election cycle.
Okay, so first of all, I don't agree with you. I think it was about Greeks. Olympics are Greek in origin. That painting, Dionysus, is in France. The other one is in Italy. But let's say that you're right, Piers.
Well, I'm only basing it on what the woman who was playing the central character.
Yeah, but she's not the director.
On her Instagram,
she's just one rando actor.
She literally put the two pictures next to each other.
Piers, she's a rando actor. She didn't choreograph it. She didn't direct it. But none of that matters because I don't agree with your central point anyway. So in the right wing in America, they're always saying, oh, freedom of speech, man, freedom, okay? Who cares if you get offended? So I'll offend black people, Muslims, Jews, women, gay people, ha, 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 freedom. And the minute that Christians are offended ever so slightly, they're like, oh my God, we're the victims. We're the most special victims of all time. Okay, get over yourselves. And by the way, I'm consistent on this. You know, I was born Muslim. But when Muslims say you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad, I say, hey, brother, you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad. That doesn't apply to anyone else. They're not in your religion. So can everybody just stop being offended at everything and move on with your lives? Really, this is so important to you, and you caught feelings over it?
Destiny is somebody who I know very rarely gets offended by anything. What was your view of this?
I mean, like, there's two levels to this. So one, if it truly was a parody of The Last Supper, then I guess you can evaluate it as such. And if you want to get offended or you want to be upset about it, I can understand why people would be. But I mean, I mean, the idea that this was with like the festivities involving Dionysus and the fact that this is like the Olympics and the Greeks and the fact that like the big thing that everybody's mad about is like the one picture, which is like zoomed in and it's not even what the thing in totality looked like, is just pearl clutching from conservatives. And, you know, when you look at, it's funny because in a way it kind of wraps into the whole Kamala Harris and conservatives being threatened. Conservatives have only run off of like culture war stuff and like crazy social issues for the past like 8 years. There is no policy platform. So it's not surprising to me that now the new thing,
there's no policy platform. That's a blatant lie. The conservatives don't do culture war any more than the Democrats do culture war. And honestly, fighting the culture war is part of a policy platform. We're talking about our society being upended, morality being flipped on its head.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?
American values and American traditions being stripped away. Like, that's pretty important. I know it's an overused phrase, but politics is downstream of culture. And so even if we were just running on fighting the culture war, cool, dude, but we're not. That's not even true. Trump's first term, he was the best president of my lifetime. His policies had America flourishing. But what do you know? Destiny's being disingenuous.
New chip that they've inserted into their mind to be upset about this week is that they feel slighted by the Olympics. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a Happy Holidays Cups. In a few months or something.
All I would say is I'm not a conservative. I am a Christian. I'm a Catholic, and I was pissed off by it. I thought it was deliberately mocking our religion in a way that they just wouldn't have done it with Islam.
Oh, wait,
they wouldn't have done it with Islam.
You were watching. You were
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. You're like, oh my God, is this the last stop? I'm so upset right now. No shot.
Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let me explain why. There's actually a shocking double standard about this. And it's this. There was a veteran commentator of 40 years of covering the Olympics and athletics, normally in things like water polo, volleyball, all that kind of stuff. There's a guy called Bob Ballard. He's an English guy, and he was fired by Eurosport because he said this in relation to an Australian relay swimming team, female.
Well, the women just finishing off. You know what women are like, hanging around, doing the makeup.
Outrageous, Bob. Some of the men are doing that as well.
We're doing the makeup. Yeah.
Show me where he lied.
Now, Josie, here's the point I would make about this, and this is the double standard I was alluding to. It was a bit of a dumb joke, all right? It's a sort of silly, quite sexist joke about women taking their time to do their makeup. But who cares? It was obviously just a little joke. He's an older guy. He hasn't got the woke memo about no one can laugh at anything anymore. But putting aside that to one point, he gets fired immediately. But the people behind the desecration of The Last Supper in front of billion viewers, offending 2.5 billion Christians, none of them get held accountable. Why has Bob Ballard had to go for what was a lame but tame joke about female swimmers?
It's about two different sets of rules for two different types of people. And he said something that was considered sexist against women, which, let me say, as a woman, yes, we take a while to do our makeup. And that's okay. And it's all right to acknowledge that. It's just the truth. And it's nothing sexist about it. But since he offended the wrong people, he had to pay the punishment for offending the wrong people, which was, losing his job?
Yeah, I mean, he's been pulled off the Olympics. I mean, Officer Tatum, here's my problem. Nobody's really offended by what he said. Nobody. And yet I read people on social media calling for his kind of summary execution. This was the most disgusting. And here's what really got my goat too. This was all raging away at exactly the same time that a Dutch male swimmer was trending on X because he's wearing a flesh-coloured swimming trunks, which looked like they reveal a bit too much. And women who were expressing, on the one hand, outrage at this sexism from Bob Ballard were all drooling over this Dutch guy's trunks. It's one rule for them, another for us, Officer Tatum.
100%. I mean, I think that's what frustrates people, because it's like, look, if you listen, I would love to see them do a mockery of Muhammad. I mean, their heads would be laying on a table and they begin thrown off of these buildings that we see in the background. If that was the case, they never would mock Muhammad. And I don't think they should mock Christianity. I'll just say this. It's bad for business no matter who you are. If I was on the board and I was looking to do events, I'd say, how about I be as impartial as possible so people can actually enjoy the Olympics, they can enjoy the festivities, and we don't have to offend people in this moment. But they could not help themselves but to shame Christians. And then if a man makes a comment about a woman, it's like it also makes people, here's what I'll say. Black people get so offended about just about anything. You see Jewish people get offended just about anything, and women get offended by just about anything. And it really creates this animosity in these groups, or gay people get offended by a lot of stuff. It creates animosity because a woman can make a joke about a man and say he's ugly, he's hairy, he's nasty, he's dirty, and men just take it, and who cares? But if you make a joke about a woman, they got a term called sexist. And it's weird to me. And what it does is it create animosity between groups that should not exist. It's just like if you make a joke about a black person, you will never in your life see a white comedian really joking about black people. Even if it's a joke, you hardly will ever see it. Black people joke about white people every day of the week. Why can't we all just look at each other as people? If somebody want to tell a joke, tell a freaking joke, laugh at it. If you don't like it, just turn the channel. But now it's such a double standard that when I was a cop, just real quick, when I was a cop, I could say things online, I could do things on patrol, that if I were white, I would get fired immediately and called a racist. And that's just not right. And I want to see those things change in America.
Yeah, I mean, Tomi, have we just lost our sense of humour? I mean, I couldn't imagine you getting outraged by somebody making a joke like that to you. You would just probably laugh and whack them back with a zinger of your own, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me. That joke about women taking a long time, guess what? Women do take a long time. So it doesn't bother me in the least. I'm not going to get outraged about it. And to be quite honest, to go back to this Last Supper thing, I didn't like it. It somewhat offended me as a Christian, but all it's going to do for me is I just have no interest in watching the Olympics anymore because it's turned me off now because they've made a point of saying, hey, this is not for you. Kind of the same way that Bud Light made a point with Dylan Mulvaney saying, hey, all you other people, this really isn't for you anymore. So to go back to what Brandon Tatum said, this is more about a business thing because now I just have no interest in watching the Olympics. I might have otherwise. So just why do it? Why go out of your way to offend a certain people's religion? Bad for business. I'm not going to cry over it, but I just think it's stupid.
I agree. I
think you guys are all way too sensitive.
The funny thing is that you're too sensitive. You're sensitive that we have an opinion.
All right,
that's
Cenk,
crazy. If people are upset with it, they have an opinion.
Let Cenk have his say.
So listen, I agree. Yeah, I agree with Piers on that. Ballard guy should have never been fired. It's totally innocuous joke. I agree that Democrats focus too much race and gender, and I agree that sometimes it feels imbalanced. But guys, you're pretending like Christians don't run the country. Of course they do. You're pretending like women have historically had the same amount of power that men have had. Of course they haven't. There's a reason why. So for example, I'll use my own background. In Turkey, if the Turks make fun of the Kurds, it's not the same as if the Kurds make fun of the Turks. Why? Because the Turks have all the power. And they could crush the minority who are the Kurds. There's a power imbalance there. That's what they're pointing out. Look, I wish we got past all this race and gender stuff, but if you want to talk about who's offended, I mean, you guys say like, oh yeah, you can never do it about Muslims. Are you crazy? As a guy who's ethnically Muslim, born Muslim, people say that they say the worst possible things about me, including that I should be killed 2,000 times over every single day, and nobody ever does a damn thing about it, because nobody cares about Muslims in this country.
Hang on. Brandon, hang on. The thing is, Cenk, you're missing the point. The point is not whether you would find a joke funny or not about Muslims. It's the fact that the Olympic chiefs would never have authorized a skit mocking Islam and the Prophet Muhammad in the way that skit mocked Christianity and Jesus Christ. And it was interesting to me to see the reaction, actually, from Muslim groups, including one of the biggest Muslim groups in Egypt, where their leader came out and was as emphatically critical of what had happened on behalf of Christians as any Christians were. So this was something where I think leaders of all faiths around the world went, even if it's not us, this is just gratuitously offensive.
It's the idea that it's the best comparison that's always done is
hold on, let me answer that.
Hang on, Destin, I'll come to you after
let me just answer that real quick. So first of all, I don't care about the Olympic Committee, and I don't believe that anybody's going to watch swimming or not watch swimming because they were offended by some sort of skit. If we're talking about which religion actually has power,
I mean, I'm not watching the Olympics because of it. So, I mean, a lot of people aren't watching the Olympics because of it. You're wrong.
Here, so Christians in Louisiana and other places are actually passing laws saying that the kids have to be indoctrinated with Christian propaganda. So there is actually people that have power in this country, and it is definitely not Muslims, it's Christians. And by the way, we're talking about getting offended. As now an atheist, people say that we're going to burn in hell. They say the most offensive things about us, and we don't sweat it. You know why we don't sweat it? Because we know we're right. If you guys knew that you were right, then you wouldn't sweat it either. But you actually are nervous about it.
Telling you that you're going to burn in hell isn't supposed to be an insult. It's out of concern. We believe that's where people are going to go when they sin and don't accept Christ. If people are telling you that to offend you, that's weird, because Christians don't tell people that to offend them. If you're a Christian, you're a follower of Christ. You want to go around and warn people that they're on their way to hell, so they don't go there.
Because you don't think you're right. That's why you take so much offense at people saying their opinions about your religion. And that's true of all.
All right, Destiny, final word to Destiny.
something that should always be kept in mind is conservatives always play this game. And Piers, I think you do it sometimes too, where people will say, well, look at this person in power and what they said. Okay, well, what if we compare that to what these random people on Twitter said? Why the comparisons, right? This guy was a commentator for the Olympics, and whether you agree or disagree with women participating in sports or not, the fact that you would allude to people doing makeup when these are some of the most athletically competitive women in the world doing their competitive events, I could imagine a lot of people would view that in really bad taste. I understand that and say, well, what about these random people on Twitter making comments? How is this even a comparison? Like, they're not going to be fired from anything because they're not working for anything. Just random people on Twitter. And then again, this idea of like Christians being so mad that Tommy's over, I'll never watch the Olympics because one still from like an 8-hour opening ceremony offended me as a Christian. And it's like, are we forgetting that? I mean, forget what Jenk said about people trying to have the 10 Commandments be, in courthouses and whether or not religious education or whatever should be mandated, all this. Forget that. The president of the United States in the last term, Donald Trump, literally ran on banning Muslims from coming to the United States. He wanted to ban Muslims from coming. He had a conversation with Giuliani where he said, how do I ban all Muslim immigration? None of this is, to be clear, none of this is even contested.
Destiny,
he went with the 7. He went with the 7. No, I live in the real world. I hope that you conservatives join us one day, please.
Muslims.
He absolutely did.
He's going to ban
Giuliani,
Muslims from America.
Conversation Muslim ban. There's a reason why
Put
he went
some
with 7
money on
countries
it.
That he did.
Put some money on it, Destiny.
Go
Put
look
some
it up.
money on it.
Go read it. Go read it.
We can do
it.
a
Go look it
bet
up
right now.
Go look it up.
Let's bet right now. You say you'll ban Muslims
from
America.
I'm actually
Muslims nations that weren't banned.
Look, I'll say one last thing. For conservatives, Trump never means anything he says. He says, let's ban a complete and total ban of Muslims. And they go, no, he's just joking. He's lying. He's crazy. He's stupid. Don't ever believe anything he says. Then why do you guys like him?
Did Obama ban Muslims?
No.
Donald Trump went on the same list for banned countries as Obama. Trump went on the same list as Obama's list.
He's just why did he say it, brother? He said it. He said it because he wants you to hate Muslims.
What Donald Trump said, fact check, okay, by a true patriot. Welcome to this fact check. Obama had a list of 7 countries that were under heightened scrutiny for surveillance for people that visited the United States. Donald Trump initially wanted to ban all Muslims. That got shot down as an idea. So instead, he took that list of countries. He took the 7 countries that Obama had under heightened scrutiny for immigration or visas, and he decided to ban those 7 countries instead. So the idea that Donald Trump used the same list that Obama did.
It is actually, hang on.
Obama used it for heightened scrutiny for surveillance.
Hang on.
How could
it
Trump
is
ban
completely.
all Muslims?
Hang on.
Bro.
I'm about to say to Officer Tatum,
God forgive me, but it is so hard to listen to Destiny, dude.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, man. I would listen to Chank on repeat for like 10 hours straight rather than listen to Destiny talk for 5 minutes, dude. Whew.
Trump never called for a ban on all Muslims. He actually called for a short-term cessation of allowing people from the 7 countries Obama had identified coming into America after a terror attack while they worked out what was going on. And that got shot down. That's actually the truth about what happened. And if you're going to talk about Barack Obama, let's come back to my favorite thing. My favorite statistic about Barack Obama is that for all the talk about Trump and deportations and the border and everything else, the truth is,
he's not running.
The truth is the greatest deporter in the history of the United States was Barack Obama. Final word to Tomi Lahren.
We're not going to vote for. I promise not to vote for Barack Obama in 2024. I won't do it.
Final word to Tomi.
I
want to give the final word to
either of those.
I want to give.
You gotta love the way that Destiny tries to call out Piers for using Obama, for trying to use a whataboutism, when that is what Destiny does all the time. Obama's not running for office. Obama's not running for office. Yeah, everybody understands that, but he's the president that you guys were all in love with. You guys were in love with this guy. He walked on water to you. So Piers is pointing out Obama did the same thing. It's not about whether or not he's running for office. He's pointing out the inconsistencies in your arguments. He's pointing out your contradictions. Destiny does that constantly. And then Piers goes to do it, and he tries to make it seem like Piers's argument doesn't make any sense, and it does. It clearly does. Obama was like the second coming of Jesus to these people, which is bizarre because he was just another establishment politician, just like all the others. That's another story. Man, that was a hard one to listen to. Oh, man. Before we go, I just wanted to say, as I listen to Destiny, I think to myself, why does Piers platform that guy? Why does anybody give that dude a platform? And I had to check myself because I'm not a leftist, dude. That's not how I should be thinking. The more that people cannot stand listening to what Destiny has to say, the more he should be platformed. If we support the right to speak freely, then that means guys like Destiny too. Yeah, he's annoying, he's hard to listen to, but he deserves to be platformed just like Officer Tatum and even Cenk Uygur. That's what I really like about these Piers Morgan Uncensored panels is he brings on all kinds of people on the left, all kinds of people on the right. And it's a really good open discussion, and that's what we need. It's getting more and more scarce. Even though I don't agree with Piers on everything, I think his show's pretty cool. Anyway, you guys, do not forget to like and subscribe to this channel. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.